Welcome, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into mastering C1 Advanced English. If you're listening and you're navigating that C1 level, well, you're in a pretty interesting spot on your language journey. You've already climbed some serious peaks, right? You've built a huge vocabulary, maybe even dream in English sometimes. But you probably also feel there's this higher peak still ahead, that sense of needing, true mastery, that effortless command that feels almost native. And here's the interesting thing we found, the strategies that actually got you to C1. They might not be the ones that push you beyond it. It's not really about more sporadic, intense study sessions anymore. It's about something quieter that may be more powerful, the cumulative strength of a really well-designed daily habit.
That's such a crucial point. So many C1 learners, they hit this kind of plateau, and it's not usually because they lack knowledge. It's more that their current methods, the ones that worked before, they aren't delivering those small incremental gains you need at this advanced stage, those almost invisible improvements. So our mission today is really to help you become what we're calling a habit architect, specifically for your advanced English learning. We're going to dig into the psychology of habit formation, look at some fantastic real-world examples from other C1 learners, and give you some advanced strategies and resources to really accelerate things. We're aiming to move beyond just, relying on sheer willpower.
That makes total sense. Because, in C1, the challenge isn't usually the language knowledge, it's consistency, right? Our lives get so busy. You've got work demands, personal stuff, just being plain tired at the end of the day. And all of that can just completely derail your best intentions to study or practice. And let's be honest, trying to force yourself through with willpower when you're exhausted, that's outside. Well, it's usually a losing battle. Motivation is just so fickle, isn't it? It comes and goes.
Exactly. And here's where the deeper insight for advanced learners comes in. Many people get the basics of habits, but what's often missed at C1 is how progress itself changes. It becomes more subtle. You're not just learning lists of new words anymore. You're refining nuance, you're mastering prosody, that's the rhythm and intonation of speech, or you're internalizing really complex sentence structures. And these games, they aren't always immediately obvious, which makes the reward part of the habit loop harder to feel sometimes. So understanding habit architecture becomes even more critical. We can look at James Clear's framework from Atomic Habits. He says every habit has 4 steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. And our goal essentially is to make each of those stages almost irresistible. So you build this really strong neurological loop. Okay, so step 1, the cue. You have to make it obvious. Your environment, often without you even realizing it, is constantly shaping what you do. If that English novel you want to read is buried under a stack of papers, well, the cue to read it just doesn't exist. So you actually need to design your surroundings, your space, to make those learning cues totally impossible to miss. Engineer your space for success.
Okay, so make the trigger really visible. Got it.
Exactly. Then number 2, the craving. Make it attractive. If you start associating your English practice with like a boring chore, your brain's naturally going to try and avoid it. The clever part here is linking your habit to something you genuinely enjoy. Make the idea of doing it appealing, almost like a little treat for yourself.
Connecting it to something positive.
Yeah,
nice.
Precisely. Then we have the response. Step 3 is make it easy. Think about friction. The more obstacles, the more effort involved between you and starting the habit, the less likely you are to actually do it. So the goal is to radically reduce that activation energy needed to just begin. This is where that famous 2-minute rule is so helpful. Just commit to doing the habit for 2 minutes. Often that tiny start is enough to get you going, and it turns into a much longer session. It's like a gateway.
Just 2 minutes. Okay, that sounds manageable.
And finally, step 4, the reward. Make it satisfying. Your brain is basically wired to repeat actions that give it an immediate little hit of dopamine, that feel-good chemical. So for the habit loop to really close and reinforce itself, that reward needs to be immediate and feel genuinely gratifying. You're giving your brain a clear signal, yes, that felt good, let's do it again.
That reward piece feels particularly important for C1, like you said, because the progress isn't always so, obvious day to day. So how does this framework actually work in practice? It's one thing to talk about cues and cravings, but what does this really look like in someone's actual busy life?
Yeah, theory's great, but applying it, that's everything, isn't it? We've actually found some really inspiring examples of C1 learners who've really put these habit-building ideas into practice effectively. They come from all over, different backgrounds, which really shows how flexible this whole approach is. Definitely. Let's start with Kenji. He's a project manager, works in Tokyo. His specific goal was to lead international conference calls more confidently. He wanted assertive, nuanced English, not just understanding, but really steering the conversation. His challenge, super common for professionals,
Right.
long hours, a really demanding commute on the Tokyo subway, super crowded, and basically zero dedicated study time at home.
Okay, sounds familiar to many, I bet.
Yeah.
So how did he architect his habit?
Well, his cue was brilliantly simple. Before he leaves for work each day, he downloads a 20-minute business English podcast, something like the Harvard Business Review IdeaCast, straight into a specific folder on his phone called English Commute. And crucially, his noise-canceling headphones, they are always in his work bag right next to his train pass, so the cue is just perfectly integrated into his existing routine of getting ready for his commute. No extra thought needed.
Seamless.
Yeah.
Okay, what about making it attractive? The craving.
He did two things. First, he chose podcasts. He was genuinely interested in leadership, strategy things related to his job, so it didn't feel like a chore. Second, he used something called temptation bundling. He allowed himself to buy a premium coffee from his favorite coffee shop near the office, but only after he finished listening to the podcast episode. So the English practice literally became the key to unlocking his morning coffee ritual.
That's clever, linking it directly. And the response, making it easy.
Super easy. The habit wasn't study English for an hour. It was simply press play on the pre-downloaded podcast. Activation energy. Almost zero. And within that 20-minute episode, he didn't try to do everything. He focused mainly on shadowing. So listening to a sentence, pausing, and then really mimicking the speaker's intonation, their stress patterns, the rhythm. He aimed for just 5 or 10 minutes of active shadowing within the 20-minute podcast. Totally manageable, even squished on a train.
Just focusing on one small high-impact activity. Makes sense. And the reward.
Well, the immediate reward was obvious, that delicious coffee. But he also kept a tiny notebook. And in it, he'd quickly jot down any powerful phrases or collocations he heard, like to gain traction, or maybe let's circle back on that point. Just seeing that list grow gave him a really tangible sense of progress. But the ultimate satisfaction, the real payoff, came in his actual meetings. When he successfully used one of those new phrases and saw his international colleagues react positively, like, ah, yes, I understand. That was huge.
Wow, yeah. That's incredibly powerful. It's not just about learning stuff in isolation. It's seeing it work in the real world, getting that immediate feedback. I can see how that would be super motivating for C1 learners.
Absolutely. That application is key. Okay, our next example is Sophia. She's a marketing manager based in São Paulo, Brazil. Her goal was different. She wanted to elevate her writing, move it from just being grammatically correct to being genuinely persuasive and sophisticated, because she needed to write compelling marketing copy for a global English-speaking audience. Her big challenge, her job, was really mentally taxing. By the end of the day, her brain felt, completely fried. Evening study just wasn't going to happen.
Another common problem, brain drain, is real.
Yeah.
So morning habit then.
Exactly. Sophia's cue was anchoring her English habit to the very first thing she did when she sat down at her desk in the morning. She set it up so she always has a browser tab permanently open to The Economist, and her laptop charger is always placed right next to a specific notebook and pen she uses only for her English practice. So just the act of arriving at her desk in the morning became the unmistakable trigger for her English work.
Making the environment do the work. Okay, how did she make it attractive?
She created a lovely little ritual around it. She'd make herself a really nice cup of Brazilian coffee, sit comfortably, and create this calm, dedicated space. And she mentally framed, she called it her executive English hour. Not a chore, but high-level professional development. This cultivated a feeling of empowerment, almost like an indulgence.
I like that framing. Executive English hour makes it feel important. And the response, making it easy.
She made it incredibly specific and time-bound. Her task wasn't vague like improve writing, it was. For 25 minutes, I will read one article from The Economist and highlight 5 examples of sophisticated vocabulary or complex sentence structures. She actually uses a Pomodoro timer to keep her focus for that 25 minutes. Then immediately after, she spends 10 minutes on what she calls deconstruction and reconstruction. She takes those complex sentences she highlighted, breaks them down to understand the structure, and then reconstructs them or writes completely new sentences mimicking that same sophisticated structure. Active engagement, not just passive reading.
That's very structured. reconstruction. Cool. What about her reward?
The immediate reward was the satisfaction of finishing that focused block of work, plus enjoying her coffee, of course. But the long-term reward is really tangible and motivating for her. She keeps a special section in her notebook where she rewrites headlines from her own company's marketing materials using the sophisticated styles she's learning. So seeing a bland headline like, say, "Our new product is good," transform into something like "Introducing a paradigm shift in home automation," that gives her a super clear, satisfying measure of progress directly linked to her job performance. That's a huge driver.
Those are just fantastic concrete examples, real blueprints for building the habit itself. But okay, once you've got that consistent daily routine going, how do you make sure you're filling that time with the most effective learning strategies? Because like we said at C1, generic advice, it probably isn't going to move the needle much anymore. What's the next layer?
You've absolutely nailed the next crucial question. Building the habit is step one, foundational. Filling it with high-impact learning is step two. And our first advanced strategy here is what we call active immersion, not passive exposure. Look, at the C1 level, just passively watching Netflix in English, while it's enjoyable and has some benefit, it's generally not enough for significant progress. You need to actively engage with the material to really internalize the nuances, the structures, the vocabulary.
Okay, active, not passive. How does that look with, say, a book?
Great question. For a book recommendation, I'd suggest something like Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. He's a Nobel laureate. His prose is just beautiful, understated, very precise. The novel's told from an AI's point of view, so it's full of subtle nuances in perception and language. It's sophisticated, but still accessible. Now, how to use it actively? You could try keeping a vocabulary nuanced journal. Don't just list new words, note down words you already know, but analyze how Ishiguro uses them with particular power or specific shade of meaning. Why content instead of happy here? Or try a stylistic imitation task. Read a paragraph carefully, then close the book, pick a completely different topic, and try to write a new paragraph actively imitating Ishiguro's style. Maybe his typical sentence length, his rhythm, the overall tone.
Imitating the style. Interesting.
Right.
Okay, what about with a film?
For film, a brilliant choice for C1 learners is Arrival, the 2016 sci-fi movie. It's literally a film about language and communication. It's incredibly intelligent, thought-provoking, and it features quite a bit of technical and academic-style dialogue. Plus, its central theme explores how language might actually shape our perception of reality, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, basically. Really fascinating stuff. To use Arrival actively, find an online transcript of a key scene. Watch the scene with the transcript in hand. Pause frequently. Really analyze the dialogue. Why did they choose that specific word? How does the intonation change the meaning of the line? Or try an intonation shadowing exercise. Pick a few lines spoken by Amy Adams' character, Dr. Banks. Record yourself saying them. Then listen back and compare your pitch, your stress, your intonation to hers in the film. Then re-record, trying to match her prosody exactly. Mastering that musicality of English, the prosody, makes a huge difference in sounding natural and fluent.
I really like that idea of becoming a collector. It shifts your mindset, doesn't it? From just passively understanding to actively acquiring something new and specific. That feels like a key shift for advanced learners.
It absolutely is, which leads us perfectly into our second advanced strategy, become a collector of sophisticated language. It's very common for C1 learners to get comfortable using language that's perfectly correct, grammatically sound, but maybe a bit plain, a bit uninspired, predictable. Your goal at this level needs to be actively hunting for, collecting, and then intentionally incorporating more sophisticated, more nuanced, more native-like language into your own speaking and writing.
Actively hunting it down. Okay, can you give us an example of someone doing that?
Sure. Let's talk about Lena. She's a PhD student in Berlin, Germany, studying sociology. Her specific goal was twofold: to participate confidently in academic seminars, holding her own in complex discussions, and also to write her doctoral thesis using the sophisticated formal language expected in her academic field. Her challenge was pretty classic for academics learning English. She could understand dense academic papers perfectly well, but when she spoke or wrote herself, her language felt, to her, overly simplistic in comparison.
Right, the gap between receptive and productive skills.
Yeah.
Very common.
How did she structure her collection habit?
Okay, so her cue. Every weekday morning at 10 a.m. sharp, a calendar alert pops up on her computer. English Academic Sprint, non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And her desk is already set up, a relevant academic journal, like the American Journal of Sociology, for example, and a specific digital notebook she uses only for this purpose. The cue is clear, consistent, and tied to her workspace.
Got it. The craving. How'd she make it attractive? She paired the habit with things that signal deep work mode for her. She brews a specific kind of herbal tea she likes, and she listens to about 10 minutes of an intellectually stimulating podcast, something like the BBC's In Our Time just beforehand. This ritual helps her get into a focused, scholarly mindset, making the upcoming task feel less like a chore and more like dedicated, high-level intellectual work.
Creating that focused atmosphere.
Okay.
And the response, the actual collection part.
Her response is her collection habit. For 30 minutes solid, she reads a new academic article in her field. But her explicit mission isn't just to understand the content. She's tasked herself with being a language collector. She actively hunts for and copies down specific things into her digital notebook. Sophisticated transition signals, phrases like "this in turn suggests that," or "a corollary of this argument is," or "notwithstanding these objections." Things beyond basic connectors. She also collects academic collocations, those typical verb-noun pairings like to posit a theory, to substantiate a claim, to challenge a paradigm, and she pays attention to nominalizations. That's the academic tendency to turn verbs or adjectives into nouns, like turning judging into making a judgment, or important into of great importance. It makes writing sound more formal.
Wow, that's very targeted collecting. What's her reward?
The immediate reward is simple. She gets to tick off English Academic Sprint in her Habit Tracker app, a small, satisfying win. But the truly satisfying reward, the one that keeps her going, comes later when she's actually writing her thesis or preparing for a seminar. She keeps her collection notebook open right beside her computer, and she makes a conscious effort to incorporate one or two of these newly collected sophisticated phrases or structures into each paragraph she writes. Seeing her own writing become more polished, more authoritative, more genuinely academic, that's immensely satisfying and directly contributes to her academic success. That's the real payoff.
So it's about making that high-level language feel less intimidating, breaking it down into collectible pieces, and then seeing it directly elevate your own work.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful feedback loop. Okay, that makes sense. Now, this final strategy you mentioned, it sounds a bit different. It's about embracing discomfort. That sounds, well, uncomfortable. Tell us more.
You're right. It does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? But this one is crucial for breaking through plateaus, especially with fluency. Our third advanced strategy is embrace productive discomfort. The idea is to genuinely grow, particularly in spontaneous speaking, you have to consistently operate right at the edge of your current abilities. You need to intentionally put yourself in situations where you're forced to produce language under a little bit of pressure without the safety net of careful preparation or editing.
Operating at the edge. Okay. How does that translate into a habit? Let's have another case study.
Perfect. Let's look at Javier. He's a freelance graphic designer working out of Madrid, Spain. His goal was very specific. Improve his conversational fluency and spontaneity, particularly when talking with his English-speaking clients on video calls. He wanted to reduce his heavy reliance on pre-written scripts. His challenge, also very common. He had very few opportunities for spontaneous English conversation in his daily life, and he felt immense pressure and anxiety during those important client calls.
Okay, the high-stakes conversation fear. I get that. What was Javier's thought? His cue?
Javier's cue was super simple. A recurring alarm on his phone at the end of his workday, 6 p.m. That's it. And he also has a small, cheap phone tripod permanently set up on his desk. It's just always there, ready to go. Minimal friction.
End-of-day alarm, tripod ready. And the craving. How did he make himself want to do something uncomfortable?
He used habit stacking very cleverly. He scheduled this productive discomfort habit immediately before something he absolutely loves doing, playing online video games with his friends. So the English practice essentially became the price of admission to his evening relaxation and fun. It made the discomfort feel worthwhile, a necessary step to get to the reward he really wanted.
Ah, the gateway to gaming. Smart. Okay, what was the actual response, the uncomfortable habit itself?
His response is his productive discomfort habit. He hits record on his phone, on the tripod, and records a 1-minute video diary. Just 1 minute. The topic is always simple. What I did today, or what I worked on today. But here are the strict rules he imposed on himself. No script allowed, no stopping the recording once started, and absolutely no re-recording, even if he messes up or pauses awkwardly. He has to speak continuously for 60 seconds. This forces him to think on his feet, to practice circumlocution, finding alternative ways to express himself when he can't immediately find the perfect word, and, crucially, to get comfortable with imperfection in his speech. All vital skills for genuine, spontaneous conversation.
Wow, 1 minute, no stopping, no re-recording. That does sound productively uncomfortable. What's the reward?
The immediate reward is twofold. First, just the sheer relief of having done it. And second, the explicit permission he gives himself to log on and start gaming with his friends. But the long-term reward is something he created for himself, and it's incredibly motivating. He saves all these one-minute videos in a private folder on his computer. Then, about once a month, he forces himself to watch 2 videos. His very first one, and his most recent one. He told us the progress he sees in his fluency, his speaking speed, his confidence, and his ability to just keep talking is often dramatic and undeniable. He's literally building a visual portfolio of his own improvement.
That is brilliant. You're creating your own concrete evidence of progress, which, as we keep saying, can be so hard to perceive at the C1 level otherwise. That's fantastic. Okay, so we have these habit architectures. We have these advanced strategies like active immersion, language collecting, and productive discomfort. What kind of specific resources, books, films, tools should our listeners be looking for to really fuel this system and keep pushing their boundaries?
Great question. Having the right fuel for your habit engine is key. Let's talk books for deep reading first, tailored for C1, C2 level challenges. For nonfiction, I highly recommend Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. It deals with cognitive biases, complex ideas, but the writing itself is incredibly precise, almost academic. It's perfect for honing your ability to understand and articulate nuanced arguments and detailed analysis. Really stretches your comprehension.
Okay, Kahneman, dense but rewarding. What about fiction?
For contemporary fiction, maybe try Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. His prose is quite lyrical, and he uses these long, flowing sentences. Reading him is like a masterclass in using different clauses and conjunctions effectively. Brilliant for deconstructing complex grammar and then trying to emulate it in your own writing. And for classic fiction, if you're feeling ambitious, Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. Her stream of consciousness style is definitely a challenge, but it forces you to pay incredibly close attention to subtle shifts in thought and feeling. It's like exploring the internal workings of the mind through language. Very rewarding for advanced learners wanting to grasp subtlety.
Some challenging but potentially game-changing reading there. What about for active listening? Films or series?
Right, films and series for active listening. A classic recommendation is the political drama, The West Wing. The dialogue is famously fast-paced, very witty, incredibly dense. It's packed with political and legal terminology. Watching it, especially with transcript analysis like we discussed, is fantastic for tuning your ear to the rhythm and speed of intelligent, persuasive speech.
The West Wing. Okay. Need to keep the pause button handy for that one.
Probably. Then, for something more philosophical, maybe the sci-fi film Ex Machina from 2014. It's tense, features long, intricate dialogue scenes exploring complex ideas like consciousness and artificial intelligence. It's rich in sophisticated vocabulary and provides an excellent model for structured debate and argumentation. And if you want a real challenge, especially for pronunciation and articulation, try the BBC series Sherlock. Benedict Cumberbatch's rapid-fire deductions, filled with vast and often quite esoteric vocabulary. Trying to shadow his monologues is like an extreme sport for your mouth. It really pushes your clarity and speed.
Sherlock for pronunciation boot camp. Okay, love it. What an incredible journey we've been on. We've gone through the core psychology of habit formation. We've seen these inspiring real-world case studies from learners just like you all around the globe. And we've explored these powerful strategies and resources. Now the challenge really shifts to you, the listener. It's your turn to become your own habit architect. Remember, the goal isn't to just copy Kenji's commute routine or Sophia's morning hour exactly. Use their stories, use Javier's video diary, use Lena's collection method as inspiration, but design a system that fits the unique shape of your life, your specific challenges, and your personal English goals.
Precisely. It has to work for you. So here are the concrete, actionable steps you can take, maybe even starting today, to design your own personalized system. Step 1. Define your one thing. Get super specific. What single English skill do you most want to improve right now? Don't just say, get better at speaking.
Right.
Make it measurable if possible. Maybe something like, I want to be able to articulate my opinion clearly during a team meeting without hesitating for more than 3 seconds. That's your North Star. It gives you focus.
Okay, one specific, clear goal.
Step 2, identify your anchor moment. Think about your day. What is one habit you already perform absolutely every single day without fail? Making your morning coffee, your commute, brushing your teeth before bed. This existing habit, this anchor moment, will become the reliable cue for your new English microhabit. You're going to chain the new habit to it.
Attach it to something solid. Makes sense.
Step 3, design your 15-minute microhabit. Start small, but make it high impact. What is one potent 15-minute English activity that targets your one thing goal that you can realistically chain to your anchor moment? So, if your goal is better writing, maybe it's deconstruct one paragraph from The Economist. If it's speaking fluency, maybe record a 1-minute unscripted audio diary. Listening. Shadow 2 minutes of a challenging podcast. Vocabulary. Learn 3 new collocations from my novel and write a sentence for each. The key words here are micro, keep it short initially, and high impact. Make sure it directly serves your specific goal.
15 minutes. Focused. Tied to the anchor.
Okay. Step 4, architect your environment. Proactively set up your physical and digital space to make starting this micro habit ridiculously obvious and easy. If you're reading a book, put it on your pillow before bed. If it's a podcast, create a shortcut right on your phone's home screen. Put the journal and pen next to the coffee maker. Your aim is to make starting so frictionless that it's almost harder not to do it. Remove all the barriers to just beginning.
Remove the friction. Got it.
And finally, step 5, choose your reward. How are you going to make completing this micro habit immediately satisfying? It could be as simple as putting a big check mark in a habit tracker app or on a wall calendar. It could be allowing yourself 5 minutes of scrolling social media only after you've done it. The crucial thing, as we discussed with James Clear's model, is that the reward must be immediate and feel genuinely gratifying to really close that habit loop and make your brain want to repeat the action tomorrow.
Design the whole loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. Tailored to you. You know, the journey from C1 towards C2, or even just deeper mastery within C1, it really is a marathon, isn't it? Not a sprint. And success, it seems, isn't really found in those heroic multi-hour study binges that just leave you feeling burnt out after a week. It's found in the quiet consistency, that almost unseen power of a daily, maybe just 15-minute well-designed habit, repeated day after day, week after week.
That's exactly right. By becoming your own habit architect, you're doing something much more profound than just learning English vocabulary or grammar rules. You're building a reliable, self-sustaining system that practically guarantees your progress over time. You're forging a relationship with the language that's resilient, sustainable, and ultimately truly transformative. It's an investment in yourself that pays compound interest every single day you stick with it.
So that mist that sometimes feels like it's obscuring the final peak of fluency, it will start to clear, not because of some sudden gust of wind or a flash of inspiration, but because you have meticulously built the steady, persistent engine, your daily habit, that will carry you, step by deliberate step, all the way to the top. So the question to leave you with is, what will your one small, consistent architectural step be today?